Hey guys, SoCal Val here. You are listening to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast.
Good evening and welcome everybody back to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. I'm your host, Adam Cousins. You're probably sick of me if you've watched all our shows already today. We've already had 2 shows put out today, but this is our first interview show of the week, and it is a great interview show I've got lined up. I've been waiting for a little while to get this team on the show. There's been a few bits and pieces as to why people that watch this show know why there's been a slight health issue, which is out the way now, thank God. But I am joined by Adonis Payne and Artemis. They are the Odyssey. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
No, you're more than welcome. You are more than welcome. You are tag team champions in a load of different places. I was going to reel them off, but there's not enough time for me to do that on the show. There is actually, but you are tag team champions in a lot of places, which is great, and we will touch on that shortly. Adonis, first things first. I saw you Sunday. First time I'd actually seen you in a single. You do compete in singles. That's another of your, you're not just a great tag team, you're great singles as well. I said, watched you Sunday. You was at Ignite with us. We was crowning our first Turnbuckle champion. You were in the breakout division against Remy and a great match. And actually, Artemis was there as a supporting actor, as a fan. The match itself drew tremendous applause from the crowd in Ignite at Borehamwood, and the "Please Come Back" chants for Remy is actually also a testament to you and how good it was, because it does take 2 to tango in that ring. It's not just one and one. It's not just one guy. And as good as Remy was, you made that match also excellent, and you got through to the finals in November, which is good. But going through that match, and as you were going through the motions, did you have that feeling that, hang on, there's something here. It's just clicking?
I think with Remy, it's quite easy because he's a super athlete, isn't he? I mean, he's massive. He can chuck you around for fun, but at the same time, he's got that quickness, the speed, and I mean, as you saw at the weekend, the athleticism. So I genuinely think he could wrestle a paper plane and have a good match. So for me, walking in there, it was just knowing that I had to be one step ahead of him. I had to try and beat him because there was only one spot left in that finals and it wasn't going to go to Remy. So I had to figure out how to counteract it. I did that. I was successful. I'm left with one of his handprints on my chest, but I think I'm quite happy that I contested really well with him. If we put on a great match, which is always brilliant, but the main thing is that I walked out with my hand raised. And I think the winner of that match on Sunday, that realistically is the final. Who's winning the breakout division? It was Adonis or Remy. And now we've got a clear picture as to who's getting their hands on that trophy.
And a title shot at any point in time, which could be our title, actually, if you want to go down that route.
It could be. I mean, I've kept my eye on Corey's run, but he's a nasty bloke. I mean, anytime, any place, I'd fancy my chances. But that fresh, shiny title, I mean, me and Artemis know that we quite like the brand new title as being inaugural United Tag Champ. So I'll take the second spot. I'll deal with Mike.
You deal with Mike. Well, we'll see. We'll see about that. Artemis, you were, as I say, you were there as a supporting act. You were in the. Does it always? I suppose as a tag team, because you do our tag team wrestlers like, and when you watch each other singly, is there always that sort of extra cringe when they're doing a move, just in case? We know that they do go wrong in some cases, but predominantly as a tag team, is that sort of an extra case when you're sitting there going, "Please go well, please go."
I think the hardest thing for me was being sat in the audience, where usually when I'm watching Adonis wrestle, I'm on the corner.
Yeah.
So there were some points where I was almost like trying to get him to go for the pin, just like do it now, and it was quite different being a fan in the crowd, I would say. But yeah, obviously, we enjoy tagging together, but we also enjoy seeing each other do well in singles. And you always hope that, I mean, with any wrestling match that you watch, you always hope everyone's going to come out relatively unscathed.
Yes.
So it's always good to two people standing up at the end of a wrestling match.
Yeah, that does help. Adonis, did you feel any additional pressure in this? Because before your match, the girls absolutely tore it up in their no DQ match. They left it all in there. You also had the match following you, which was going to be the turnbuckle match. So did you actually have that extra bite? As in, we want them to actually to try and better the match that was on before you, but B, go back to the curtain and kind of say, follow that, chaps.
I think when you look at that card in its entirety, there was pressure off the bat because we were two debuts. The fans knew Mark True, they know Nino, they know Aluna, they know Kira, they know Mike, Taylor James, the list goes on. Everybody on that card was a well-known name. We were two brand new faces heading into Ignite in a match against each other. We couldn't rely on, say, with the main having Mike, who is ridiculously over with the fans. So yeah, there was pressure regardless of where we were on the card. But if anything, I thought that match number 5 spot was perfect because I knew we were going to tear the house down. I knew the girls were going to tear the house down before us, and I knew the main event would do really well. So it basically, for me, just meant, cool, we're going to have a great second half of the show, start to finish. As soon as that raffle's done, we're going full pelt.
Yes.
And to be honest, yeah, that's how it was. So we almost got lucky because the no DQ match was so good.
Yeah.
The fans were just so high at the end of it that as soon as we walk out, they're ready for more action. So if anything, it helped massively. I wouldn't say if it took some of the pressure off, I would say, rather than add it on. I mean, I'm very confident in what I'm doing when I head out anyway. And I think I was far more relaxed knowing that Artemis was there and a few other friends and fans were there. So I was a lot more at home than maybe a usual debutant would be.
Sure. Yeah, exactly that. As I say, that women's match, yeah, probably did take the pressure off. But I always think that fourth match on a card, especially when you come back from the interval, the crowd have kind of like had their drinks. They've done you've done the raffle, you've been in the ring. Yeah. That match is probably probably is the worst match on the card in a sense. But the girls, I mean, Artemis, you were there. I mean, you feuded with. We've had a match with Aluna. Haven't seen you and Kira. Maybe we're
my first match at Ignite was against Kira.
Oh, was it? Oh, there you go.
And my second match was against Aluna. So, but yeah, obviously at the previous show, Kira attacked Aluna after our match.
Yeah,
and I sort of came out to give Aluna some support because it just wasn't on, and they just put on an absolute stunner. But I think for Adonis's benefit as well, the beauty of that is a no disqualification match with weapons. It's always going to be different from anything else on the card. Yeah. So the crowd were just really up for it as well, and they just did such a good job. But yeah, there was real heat between those two girls going in that, and they didn't hold anything back.
No, they certainly gave it. They're all that. I meant a baking tray shot. It's just like it comes the head.
Flew off. It was so hard it disappeared.
Yeah, it certainly did. Almost in terms of women's wrestling in general, obviously since the women's revolution, but I go back further than that to TNA when it really started. We've talked about it on the channel. To very big advocates of women's wrestling actually having a meaningful purpose rather than just here's 6 minutes, go. And we felt as if there was peaks and troughs. It goes like this and down like this. And last week, actually, probably going to show you how sad I am, but on Raw, NXT, NWA, SmackDown, and Collision, every one of those shows was main evented by women. Do you still feel that there is still that, and some more improvements can be made in terms of actually, as I said, when you give women a storyline, you give them time, you invest in it, and you get matches like Rhea Ripley and Charlotte at WrestleMania, for argument's sake.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. For context, I grew up when I was younger. When I first started watching wrestling, it was still women in bra and panties giving matches. Mm-hmm. So in context of that, we've come a really long way. Yeah. However, there's always room for improvement. I think the difficulty for me is things like there was a spot that's been going around, a match between Britt Baker and Chris Statlander on AEW, and there was a sequence in that of moves that were done, and there's been a lot of criticism about it, and then because Chris Statlander kicked out after, I think it's like a Canadian destroyer, and then It was a couple of big moves.
Three technical finishers in a sense.
Right.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of criticism about that. And that frustrates me because you see that happen in men's matches on the indies all the time, and nobody bats an eyelid. And it's things like that where you start sort of seeing challenges. And I think for me as well, wrestling, I get bookings at places that don't necessarily invest in their women's divisions. And that can be quite frustrating as well. I'm very used to being given, 6 to 8 minutes second match on the card as a regular. And there is a kind of a bit of a trope of that within the industry, and it is still sort of there. But equally, you do see more and more shows now where the division of men and women on the card is getting close to a 50-50 split. And without it necessarily being like, look at all the women we've got on the card, that's just the norm. It's this is the talent that we've got, and this is the talent we're using. So I do think there's always room to grow. But again, it depends on the promotions, and it depends on where they're investing their time and where they see their time being worth invested in as well.
Sure.
So, and for me as well, like obviously since I've started wrestling, certainly first year that I was wrestling, I wrestled more men than I wrestled women. And that's never been an issue for me. I wrestle whoever. I'm a wrestler. I wrestle wrestlers. And it almost became a bit of a novelty when I'd be like, oh, I'm wrestling another girl. This is different. Whereas, another year in or so now, it's a lot more varied. And obviously with us as a tag team, we get booked against whoever, but more often than not, it's 2 male wrestlers rather than a mix. And I don't think we've had a match against 2 females in a tag team.
Interesting. That is that something that I'm going to go back to Adonis. Is that something that you would obviously? I suppose you'd be happy to work with 2 women if that was the case, because generally, as Artemis said, it's just normally you and Artemis versus 2 men. That's how I've always seen. I was at Jurassic, and you had the lads last match, for argument's sake, when you was part of that. But that's something that, should it be more equal like that in your opinion, Adonis? Should there be like more, as Artemis just said there, you and Artemis versus 2 women, for argument's sake?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've come into this tag game just wanting to face everybody, wanting to face the best. I can't say who it was, but we were lined up, I think, for the end of October to have a tag match initially against 2 women, and that would have been the first time we would have done it. And for me, that just shows how far along it would have come, because I'm so used to going into matches against 2 blokes in a tag team with Artemis, and it would be this, and it was just the same old thing. And then I think around March, April time, we had 3 matches back to back where it was constant intergender, one of them being a main event at UBW, and then 2 weeks on the spin after that, it was intergender. And we hate that name anyway. We know it's going to stick. We know people are going to call us it, which is fine. We're not that precious about it, but we're just a tag team. And so for us, it's just about, we want to face any tag teams, whether that's the Lana Austin Experience, whether that's, the Armada again, or Crowley and Falcon again. We don't care who it is as a part of that tag team makeup. We just want to face every tag team in the UK. I think that's the main goal. So yeah, it should just be normal. I really don't understand why we have to continue having this conversation. It brings me back to the point you made earlier when you say that women main evented every single one of the shows. It's like, that's such a major talking point, but why is it such a major talking point?
Exactly. Yeah.
Some of the women that are in the UK scene at the minute are ridiculous. I would put Nina Samuels as the standout star across the whole of the UK, regardless of gender. She's number 1 across the UK, without a doubt. And, most people would go and try and sort of back their corners. But for me, it's just unquestionable. There shouldn't be this difference in gender. It's just, we're all wrestlers. We're all in the same talent pool. Yeah. Let's have a scrap, because there's so many matchups that you would love to see on the indie scene that are practically impossible because it's intergender makeup. And again, why? It's just a baffling question, because, for example, I'd like to see Nina Samuels against Doris at some point. I think that'd be a cracking match, but I think the chances of you ever being able to see that are very slim, and it shouldn't be.
Yeah, I think I spoke to CJ about, because we were talking about, obviously we'd done the turnbuckle tie, and I was mentioning about sort of women's division. He sort of said, well, at Ignite, there isn't a division. You're all there. So if I wanted to put an Artemis against, I don't know, maybe a Corey McRae, I'll do it. So his belief is you should be able to go for the same titles as everybody else, and that's why he's not actually doing like a women's championship, because he believes people like Artemis, people like Aluna Blue and Kira should be able to go and face the Mikes and the Corys of this world.
I faced Mike a couple of times.
But yeah, exactly to your point, Adonis, there, which is a really good point. Before we start talking about how you got together as a team and how wrestling growing up, I'm going to throw a few random wrestling questions at you. This first one is going to be I'm going to throw a wrestling name at you. I'll say who answers it first, so you don't have to, there's no sort of silence in between. I'll throw a wrestling name at you, and you just give us a first, either if you've got a story about them, or just a word or a phrase that comes into your head when I mention a person's name. So Adonis, we'll start with you, and I'm going to say Randy Orton.
Legend. Well, legend killer as well. But yeah, inspiration as well, would chuck that in there.
Artemis, your go. I'll
be honest, I don't watch a lot of WWE, so okay. I don't have any strong opinions, I'm afraid.
Okay, I'm going to just say literally RKO. I've met him a couple of times, but it's been quite a quick meet, so that's fine. Second one, they're going to throw up an AEW name, and Artemis, you can go first for this one. I'm going to give you Kenny Omega.
Oh, see, I've been watching Kenny Omega since he was at New Japan. I mean, the man can go, can't he?
Yep.
Man can go.
Man can go. So that should be his new thing. Kenny Omega. Man can go.
Man can go.
Adonis, Kenny Omega.
I'd say revolutionary.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna be boring. I'm just gonna say Elite, because he gets or the golden lovers with Okada. Probably be another WWE name, but it's more of a legend item, so I think you'll be fine. And Adonis, you can go first. And do I have a story about this one? Yes, I do. Shawn Michaels.
Can you go real easy? Sexy boy.
I'm sure that's a name you're familiar with.
I am familiar with that one, yeah. I mean, I think Adonis has got it there, to be fair.
He's kind of hit the nail on the head on that one. I've met Shawn how many times? I actually have an interesting picture of Shawn, and Bret Hart at a London Comic-Con. They'd obviously buried the hatchet by then. It wasn't London. It wasn't Comic-Con. Yeah, well, you'd think it was they'd done a WrestleCon in London probably about 6-7 years ago, and it was headlined by them two, and you could have a picture of that. And Shawn's I never met the Shawn Michaels of the 90s, so I can't say if he was as bad as what people say. But the Shawn that I've met on a number of occasions has been great. I'm just going to say Sweet Chin Music, because that's a great move to hit, and it's wonderful when it does get hit right. Shelton Benjamin was the best one that he's hit it on. If you've ever seen it on YouTube, I'm sure there's memes about it. There's TikToks about it. Let's just throw one more. Let's do another AEW one to finish Artemis. Let's go with the aforementioned that you mentioned earlier on, Britt Baker.
I mean, Britt Baker should be the fifth pillar. She should be called the fifth pillar, in my opinion.
Yeah,
she's been there from the beginning. She was in that women's division when they were struggling to build their women's division. So for me, she's just a legend already.
Adonis, Britt Baker. Would you want her to pull your teeth out?
No, do you know what? I wouldn't fancy my chances, to be honest. I'm going to go with a weird answer and just say glue, because like Artemis said, she held everything together when that women's division was falling and it was crumbling. Yeah. And she held it on long enough so that people from New Japan and the Indies were coming through, and it then resurfaced. And then, like you say, you've now got Statlander, Jade Cargill, Soraya, Toni Storm, and now the women's division is at a level where you can pick 7 or 8 talents out of it. So yeah, she held everything together.
Glue is a good word. I was actually going to say pillar, Artemis, and you took that. Pillar's fine. Just a quick one on AEW's women's division while we're talking about it. Obviously, Jade Cargill's now moved to the WWE. She's starting there. I was interested because I was speaking to Dave, who was at the show at the weekend, and he's a big AEW fan. And obviously potentially replacing her with Mercedes Moné, Sasha Banks, as she's known. Is it, Artemis, is it a big loss to lose someone like Jade Cargill in that division? And is Jade Cargill, because Dave was saying he believes she's more suited to that WWE sort of, I suppose, presentation of woman as how they would normally do it. Is it a big loss though for AEW?
I think it is and isn't. Like Jade Cargill, I mean, I've had a girl crush on her since she first appeared. She's just like, she's an absolute beast, you know, her physique and everything is incredible and she looks like a star. Obviously she had a run with the TNT title. And you know, she was basically squashing everyone. And I think the reality is obviously she lost that belt, she was out for a little while. She had a final match with Chris, was it last week?
Yeah, Rampage last week.
And I mean, they put on a great match, and I think that really showed how far she's come. But obviously she is still in some ways really green. Like for me, I was thinking about, you know, the first matches she's had have all been pretty much on TV for everyone to scrutinize, and I just can't imagine being in that position. And I think it's a really good opportunity for her to move company, because where do you go with her realistically with AEW? Like she had a whole run with a belt where she was squashing everyone, and I think they'd struggle to find a good fit for her like immediately. So like I said, she looks like an absolute star. She's someone who's got potential to do amazing things, and I really hope that WWE use her well.
I was going to say, Adonis, do you think that about her having, you mentioned there, Artemis mentioned that pretty much every match she had was on TV. Now she's got that sort of performance center where she can spend, maybe we were talking on the show about potentially she's not debuting until maybe the Royal Rumble was a surprise, you know, guess, but she's got the 4 months there where she's got like Shawn Michaels and all the trainers down there to actually get her that sort of, maybe take away some of that greenness, but mold her into what they want. So is that going to be really important that they do that bit right before they put her on TV?
I think she would fit in now. I reckon if she debuted tomorrow, she'd fit in. But I mean, you just look at Logan Paul and what they've turned him into. He's now a superstar. And when he first walked through the door, everyone went, why are we having more YouTubers and influencers taking spots? And now you almost beg for him to be on a card because he does make things more interesting. It's what's he going to do next? And I think they can do that. I mean, Jade's already got the wrestling side of it. So in my opinion, she's only going to go strength to strength. And to be honest, I think it's almost, I know Mercedes Moné left WWE a few years ago and it's been a while, but I almost think that's a perfect swap deal. AEW getting, I think both of their styles just suit better at the different companies. I think Mercedes will fit in 10 times better at AEW, and I think Jade will fit in 10 times better at WWE. You know, the matchups you could see Jade against in WWE, Rhea, Charlotte, Asuka, they're dream matches, and the same vice versa with Toni Storm, Britt Baker, Mercedes. I just think it works out for all parties.
I suppose in football it would be a good swap deal if they were both a trade or whatever they call it. Let's move back now. Let's talk Odyssey, this tag team that you guys have. How did this all come about? How did it all start? When did it all start? And how did the Odyssey? What was the?
It's short by accident. Is
I was going to say, do you want to take the lead on this, Artemis, or do you want me to do it?
We initially started. I mean, we had a bit of a brief conversation on my debut show about how, in some ways, our characters are quite alike, and we'd drawn influences from similar places and things like that. Didn't think much more of it. And then we were both recruited initially at UBW for the meme team. So we joined a faction with memes. And I think they were basically short a tag team for a match. And they were like, oh, we've got a faction. We'll throw these two into that. You know, great. And then it sort of just stuck. It went really well. Our first tag match was against Smash and Mike, who we've already mentioned, and James Toner. And it was just, I don't know, it was one of those things, it just clicked. It just worked. I think we've had a real privilege in that case, because I know so many people that have tried tag teams and it just hasn't quite clicked. But we just worked really well. So then it grew from there. Obviously, at that point, we were still part of the meme team. We started thinking about it. We started putting ourselves out there as a tag team separate from that, which is where the Odyssey came from, again, taking inspiration from the Greek mythology there. And we've been able to just go from strength to strength, really, from there.
Certainly have. So Honestly, it didn't obviously phase you. When you were talking of doing moves together, and obviously part of tag team is you've got to have a bit of tag team continuity and tag team moves. How was that initial phase? Did you start working on moves together, or was you just focusing on just sort of, or maybe even taking elements of moves that you do and incorporating that into tag team?
Yeah, it was a tale of both. We worked really heavily with Paul Ash, who's a big tag team guy out of the New Breed. And he basically just sent us all of the New Breed's moves and went, here you go, I'm going to teach you how to do these. And that got us through at the start.
Yeah.
And then we'd just be watching videos of like a powerhouse tag team and a flippy guy tag team, and the powerhouse is just launching the flippy guy around. And I was like, Artemis, you can do this to me, and sending it in a message. And that's how most of our moves get generated, is just by her throwing me around into the opposition. And it like Artemis said, it just stuck. It just worked. The fans really enjoyed it. We were supposed to be bad guys at UBW. We won the belts within 2.5 months and got a massive ovation. And we're like, we've just won by smashing Mike in the face with a championship, hitting both of our finishers and then a tag finisher, and then pinning him 1, 2, 3, and people are still cheering. And it almost seemed from that November, January, February, March, we could just do no wrong in the fans' eyes, no matter how dickish we were being. There was just nothing that was, it was, oh, okay, yeah, they might be idiots, but they're funny, or they just seem to get it. And yeah, now we're very, baby face at UBW because we've been pushed that way. The same starting to happen at United. And, everywhere we seem to go in tag, people are like, we want you to be the bad guys. And we're like, great, but just be warned, we may get cheered a little bit. We'll do our best. And we go out there and we beat dicks. And I think there's been a few promotions where we have managed to get real hate.
Yeah.
UKPW being one. But overall, people just like the tag team and the way that we work with it. And I think when we started getting those reactions, we realized that we were just having fun. It wasn't working. We weren't working a match or wrestling a match and like having to put on this facade that we were working together. We were just genuinely having fun. Like, I have a game in my head where I try and make Artemis laugh when we're in the ring at some point, just because it's funny to me. And she's not done it yet, but we'll get there.
Get there somehow, for sure. Before we move on to the last part of the show, we're going to play another couple of random wrestling games. Now I know you don't watch WWE, Artemis. I need to work this out a bit more differently. So Adonis, first question for you: what's the greatest wrestling match you've ever seen, either an indie show or on TV?
That is a tough one. That's I'm gonna go with it. TLC 2, simply because I didn't think that the first TLC could, I didn't think they could beat the first TLC. And like I said, I mean, I'm a tag guy. I'm massive on my tag wrestling anyway, but I just didn't see how they could make it any better. And then TLC 2 came along and they just smashed it out of the park at WrestleMania. They got everybody else involved. There was so many high spots. Obviously Jeff Hardy getting speared whilst dangling onto the title. But for me, that was one that I watched, and I didn't watch it at the time when it first came out. I was too young, but since going back and watching it, that's the one where I've been pieced to my screen the whole time, just in amazement. Like, I just assume all 6 of them are crackheads, but because I don't know what would go through their head for half of those ideas, and to go, yeah, it'll be fine. But you that's just commitment to making sure you steal a show on what is, in WWE's terms, the biggest night of their year.
And they certainly done that. Artemis, what about you? The best match it could be a match that you've seen, actually been a part there, or it's a match that you've seen on a telly.
I have to go for one from recent times, which AEW at Wembley,
Mhm.
and it is a tag match as well. It was FTR, who I absolutely love, against the Young Bucks,
Yeah.
and it was just a match where it built and it built and it built, and it got to the end where you just think, this is the finish. No, no, no. Oh my God, they've kicked. And it kept sort of doing that. And it was just like big moments. And you like, those obviously are two of the greatest tag teams that there are.
Yeah.
And the chemistry of the four of them in the ring was something really, really special. I mean, the other match that comes to mind from recent times as well is another FTR one. We saw them against Aussie Open.
Oh, Royal Quest.
Sorry?
Was it a Royal Quest?
That's it. Yeah. And that was just, again, it was just another show-stopping match. So, I mean, I'm going to be just an FTR mark, I think, now.
There's no wrong with that. I love FTR, and you haven't got long before they have another match of Aussie Open in a couple of
No,
weeks.
indeed. Yeah. So, I think that would be the one for me.
I'm going to go for a match that, and I always say this on the show, I saw a house show. So I went to a WWE house show. I can't remember if it was pre or post WrestleMania. That I don't remember. All I remember is it was Kurt Angle versus The Undertaker. And you might just think, well, that's obvious. Right? What are you talking about? But it was 45 minutes. And it was just like, when I watch wrestling anyway, I'm always tunnel vision. I don't jump up and down. I don't chant. I'm just literally watching it. I like to learn a little bit. I can't wrestle for anything. I've tried. It didn't work. And I certainly wouldn't be able to do it now. But I watch it. So I learned. And I was just sitting there. And I don't think I flinched. And I think a couple of times your mate had to keep tapping saying, like, what do you think? And I was like, shh. And it just enthralled me from minute one, because Kurt, you put a broomstick in there with people like Kurt Angle, and they're going to be great. And same with the Undertaker. But I think it was 45. I'm pretty sure Kurt Angle won it with the ankle lock in the end. I think, but he had him in an ankle lock, and it must have been like forever. It felt like at least 10 minutes. But it was an incredible match, and I think it was at the XL Arena. It was at. So there you go. I don't think you'll ever see it, but I did. And that, considering I've done a lot of WrestleManias in my time, I've literally had the trilogy with Undertaker, Michaels, and Triple H. Those are the ones that I went and see live at WrestleMania, and I had all those, but that was always the one that stands out for me. I don't know whether to do this as a tag or a single with you guys now. So this is going to be, but maybe split it up, as because I think Adonis, you're a WWE guy, and I'm pretty sure you're obviously AEW, Artemis, or TNA. So I'll have to split it up. So okay, Artemis, you're in AEW. Tony Khan comes up to you and says, it's Wrestle Dream. There you go, a couple of weeks time. Wrestle Dream, Artemis. You've got a fatal four-way. Who do you want? You can have anybody, past or present. Who do you want? It could even be people that you wrestled on the independents. But he says, doesn't matter. We'll get it. Who you have it?
Okay, first one's Jordan Grace.
Okay.
Immediate.
I'm going to talk to
you. That's like number one dream match. Number two dream match is actually Nina Samuels. So just chuck her into. Why not?
Why not?
Who else have we got? Might have to have Jamie Hayter in there as well.
Jamie Hayter to make the call. I'm happy with that. I'll pay money definitely to see that.
Big strong girls.
Big strong girls. We're gonna talk about Jordan Grace in a minute anyway. Adonis. So in this case, I've swapped it around. You're in WWE now, and Triple H walks over to you with his, I don't know, he's got no hair now, has he? He hasn't got long hair anymore.
Yeah, no, none of it.
I've got a picture of me and Triple H. I'll have to try and bring it to one of the shows you're at. And we're having an arm wrestle. And it's
nice.
It's at WrestleMania. It's at Access. He's got long hair at that point, and it's just ridiculous. The muscle. Anyway, he comes up to you. I was going to try and do a Triple H impression, but I'm not going to. I can't, because you always have to go sort of like, tonight. I remember The Rock doing it, and I just, anyway, he comes up to you. You've got the same fatal four-way WrestleMania. Who are you having?
Edge, The Rock, and it's a 50-50 between two, but I think Eddie Guerrero steals it over. It was between Eddie and Ray, and I think Eddie's just a bit more my kind of guy in terms of ring work. So we'll go with those three. Simple basis of I've just grown up loving Edge and The Rock. They're the two main reasons why I love wrestling.
I will hit you with Edge. I love Edge. I've met Edge. I've got the Rated R title that's signed by Edge. So that's
and yeah, Eddie, obviously, it's just, there's just no words to describe him other than legend. He was just so innovative with every idea. Just when you think how's he going to cheat this time? Oh, he's been caught again. How does he do it? And then there's always something brand new. I think one of my favorite ones and it's not one that people talk about a lot, but it's when I think it was Eddie and Batista against Eminem, Joey Mercury, and Johnny Nitro.
Yeah.
Eddie swings a chair behind the ref's back towards Joey Mercury, who ducks, and it hits his own tag partner, Batista, on the back. And as Batista's getting up and turning around all angry, because I think they were doing the dysfunctional tag angle with Eddie and Batista anyway. He just chucks a chair at Joey Mercury, lies down, and just Mercury gets the blame and gets beaten up. And it's only like a week later when they see the camera footage and it comes out. But it was just those kind of ideas. It was just always a chuckle, but you could see the realism and the misunderstanding behind it at the same time.
I have a quick Eddie Guerrero story that I'll tell you. I have met that man. And it was I met Edge as well a couple of times. He signed my Rated R title. I managed to finally meet him. I was going to take it to the WrestleMania. He retired the one beforehand, so I thought we'd never have a chance. He come to London Comic Con, and I was like, "Yep, I'm going," because it was Adam Copeland at that point. Anyway, Eddie, we went to WrestleMania 21. We had a 15-hour flight. So we went to Germany. Then we got to LA. Dropped our bags. Went to the hotel. Oh, Eddie Guerrero signed in Toys R Us in 6 hours. Okay, let's get a cab and go down there. So we get to Toys R Us, and there is a swarm of people. So there's 500 wristbands they give out, and we're 496, 497, 498, 499, and 500. That's just the luck. So at this point, we're buzzing. We're like, yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
Eddie comes in, they start the signing, it's getting later, and we're looking at the time and it's pushing it, and we're thinking, oh, we're not even near the door to get in yet, and he's only got like 20 minutes. Is this even going to happen? We get to the door and it's like 8 o'clock, and they've come out to us and say, look, we've got to ask Eddie if he's all right to finish. There's about 12 of us, and we're inside. We can see the guy. We've got to ask him because he's under WWE it's under the.
Yeah.
You can see the woman walk over, and she was whispering, she was sort of saying, you've got 12 left. And he looks up, he gets on the table, he does his little jig, and he was like, "We got on night, that's it." It was just at that point, we were just dead. Like we were literally like, "Oh my god!" And I think one of the first guys I've actually met. It was one of the first times I've ever met someone. Other than we met Rhino and Chris Benoit after WrestleMania 20, but this was the first one in the States. We obviously WrestleMania. It was just crazy. And when he done that, we all just we popped it, but realistically, we're all crapping it. There was one more question I was going to ask now, but it's totally gone now. I asked that. I didn't done that story.
Typical.
I might come back to that. I may have one more question. I'll come back. Oh, I've got it. Artemis, your favorite wrestling theme song, and 2, the favorite wrestling entrance presentation. So the person's entrance.
Oh, that's really hard.
It gets quite a lot of people, this one. So
my current favorite song is Judas for an entrance song, because you can sing along to it. I've not got bored of it yet, so that's the one at the minute that's rocking me. Special shout out to FTR as well, because you can sort of sing along to that too.
I hum it
in your own way.
I was literally humming it when I was doing my walk this afternoon. I literally was.
It's extremely catchy.
Yeah, it is.
The one that used to always get stuck in my head, which is a bit odd, is Kurt Angle, the da.
Yeah.
There's nothing to it, but it sticks.
You've been to Jurassic, haven't you? So my girl, Rachel, my other half, the song that stuck in her head was Nick Payne's song.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hardcore country.
Yeah, that's it. What about presentation, Artemis? The actual presentation, not necessarily the song, but.
I mean, Jade Cargill's recent return to the ring was it. With her, it's always like, what's she wearing? Because she's always got incredible gear. Will Ospreay as well needs a shout out for his, because he just has presence when he comes out. I'd have to go with them. I think Jade is always my favorite in terms of like, what is she wearing? It's so amazing.
Yeah, Adonis, your turn. I saw you drop your head back and roll your eyes.
Entrance songs is such a mean one to do, because
it is.
I have a top 5, but I can't narrow it.
Yeah.
I think I'd probably go I Walk Alone for Batista. Just simply because it's just great. But that would be a part of my top 5 anyway. Entrance presentations between 2, obviously The Undertaker. It captures your attention regardless. And I would argue The Fiend, because I think for modern times to have that like his, I always remember his first SummerSlam entrance when he faced Finn Balor. That first one, it's just goosebumps. It's that, oh, this is actually a thing. It's not just a vignette. He's actually somehow made this character come alive. And I know you saw him in spots here and there, but that's one that always just makes goosebumps. So I'd say it's between those two. I'm going to sit on the fence, and I'm not picking one or the other.
No, that's fine. I have entrance music is difficult. Entrance music, I normally Edge or Triple H is at the top two, but there are things like, even I can go back to like NWO. I still have the NWO Wolfpack song on my iPad, iPhone, things like, or Diamond Dallas Page's self-hype, that version of Team Spirit. Presentation, I will have to say The Undertaker. And we had Matt Cardona on here, and it was just like, he said that you will never experience anything in your life until you look opposite and see that guy walking towards you. And he was like, you do freeze in a lot of cases. I just remember, I'm sure they do something with the aircon in them buildings when he used to come because it was colder. It did. I don't know if it was just because you're in the moment, but when he done the Shawn Michaels thing, when Shawn come down from heaven and take a rose from hell, that was one of my favorite presentations. We're going to quite finish up now, but first, Artemis, you're known to being quite a strong woman, in more sense of the word. Congratulations on your recent strong woman win.
Thank you.
One of the things I was going to was, you mentioned Jordan Grace, and when she does her weightlifting, I know it's kind of a different thing, but she has to take time away from Impact because she has to, I suppose, get the look of the weightlifters. It's a lot more shredded, isn't it? There's muscles in places I ain't even got places when you do that. Do you find it, because obviously you wrestle when you were doing yours, do you have to train differently when you've got that coming up in mind, or is it just you're okay with what you're doing? It's kind of
probably should. I think it's difficult. Like, obviously Jordan Grace, Roy Johnson's another example. Is bodybuilding, but it's a totally different thing, because while you're on the build phase, you're eating your calories, you're doing your training, but you've got energy. Obviously with them, that when you're cutting down and you've then got to show the condition and you've got to get the body fat down, I imagine that must be horrendous to wrestle in that condition, because you're just so depleted. I do follow bodybuilding sort of as a sport. As an aside, it's something I'm interested in, and you sort of see people when they're at that point in their prep, and it will be the last few weeks before a competition, and their brains aren't functioning. It's to that level where there's that few calories in their body that the brain doesn't work. So I think if I was doing that, realistically, I would need to not be wrestling at the same time, because if your brain's not in it, you start putting other people at risk as well. It's not just about your own safety in the ring. With strongman, it's slightly different. I mean, I entered this competition on a little bit of a whim, and didn't necessarily train for it as much as I should have.
You won it.
That's
what makes it work. I just enter it.
And it was the weekend of the competition. So the competition was on Sunday. I wrestled at Sacrifice on Friday night, and then at UBW on Saturday night, and we had a delay on UBW on Saturday, so I didn't get home till midnight.
That was an injury, right? Because Chris,
it was, unfortunately, somebody broke their rib, so we couldn't move them out of the ring, so the show got delayed by over 2 hours. So I was getting home gone midnight, and then we had to get up before 6, and it was very, very hot that weekend. So I got maybe about 3 hours sleep going into the competition on the day as well, so not the best conditions, but
and you rock up and
worked out okay. I think I had the advantage of being able to use adrenaline. Like wrestling sort of gives you the ability to tap into your adrenaline, and I think that did help on the day. But strongman in some ways feeds really directly into wrestling. They sort of complement each other. You've got to have, like, obviously the types of moves that I do, I lift people up. With strongman, you lift an implement. But equally it's the conditioning side of it as well. So your ring fitness feeds into your the events where I had to do reps, so it's a lot more about your gas tank. So they do sort of complement each other. but obviously you do have to still be careful about overtraining and things like that. I actually, just before talking to you guys, was on a call with somebody, and I'm going to sign up to get a coach to help me actually do some proper programming around it and everything.
Cool.
But she's aware that I wrestle, and it will just be kind of a case of sort of listening to your body and everything like that, because obviously I want to be the best that I can be in the ring.
Yeah.
So while they work together, that's fine. If I get to a point where they're not, I'll have to assess things.
Yeah, exactly that. Adonis, as we're finishing up now, end goal for you. What do you want to achieve out of wrestling? Do you want to make this is it a hobby? Do you want to make it a full-time thing? What would you like to do?
I think the ideal world for everybody, especially in my shoes, is make it a full-time thing. That's optimum dream goal. If I can live this as my job full-time and not have to do anything else, great. I've kind of been setting short-term goals each time, not expecting to either touch them or just like not really worrying them. I think my goal for last year was to just debut at another company, and I ended up debuting at like 6 or 7. This year I was like, okay, well, I'm clearly okay, so we'll step up, and I want to debut at 10 companies. I'm on 7 already, so may not hit the 10 by the end of the year, but it's one of those where I'm working in little goals and steps. I've achieved way more than I thought I was going to 2 years in. Even talking just 1 year into the tag team, we've achieved way more than I ever thought we would. Talking 3 main events, 2 championships, stuff that, a lot of tag teams don't get to do, working with some of the best. And my mind just keeps blowing each time I work. A lot of the time I'll hit low phases, and then I'll go and have a really good show, and everything will just come back to light again. But yeah, the end goal is definitely working full time. If I can do that, then great. I've started tapping in and coaching juniors sessions at my school, because I just love being in around the wrestling business that much, that I want to do as much as I can. So I've got an army of 13 to 15-year-olds that I'm training up to be like me, whether you like that or not. That's entirely up to you. But
yeah. That's brilliant, though. I think it quite easily just show them the match on Sunday, because that was we sort of mentioned that there was a couple of matches on the review. We've mentioned there's a couple of matches on the card that wouldn't have looked out of place on an NXT or anything like that. And your match and Mark True's match with Nino was the 2 that we earmarked at that level. Listen, take our word. We don't. We're not wrestling scouts or coaches. We just know what we like, and if we feel that way, we're not saying everybody else does, but we're saying that was our thing. We earmarked 2 particular matches that we said wouldn't look out of place on an NXT or a Ring of Honor or anything like that. And it was your match with Remy, and it was a True's with Nina.
No, I really do appreciate it, because there was a couple of things that I wasn't happy with in that match on Sunday, and Artemis will tell you that. As soon as the match finished and she dropped me a message, I went back with it's okay. Looking back, it was great for what we did and for what we needed to. I put a load of pressure on myself. I didn't want to let CJ down. CJ's brought me in, trusted me with a big role. Didn't want to let him down. There's so many people in the country that could have had my spot. There's so many people in the country that could have had Remy's spot. And we were the lucky 2 that got put together. And so we just clicked really well. And, my boot landed on his chin, and I managed to get the win. So it's even bigger result when you look at it that way.
You certainly did. You certainly didn't let CJ down. I can assure you of that. I'm the same question for you, though. Is it the same for you, or is it kind of? Do you think maybe you may move towards strong woman? What's the or is it just something you'll take it as when it comes?
I'll be honest. I'm terrible at making goals, because it's one of those things where I start doing these things and things happen, and I'm like, oh. So like certainly with wrestling, it was like just as I thought I was finding my feet, things really sped up. And it was like this year, it was like before I could even sort of contemplate anything about goals or anything, I was very fortunate. I had a really good run earlier this year where I was just booked like back to back, like weekends in a row, and it was multiple days every weekend, and it was just busy. So I have been just really fortunate with it, and I really enjoy it. And for me, it's a hobby, but if opportunities came my way, that's not to say that I wouldn't take them. But obviously I've come into this at a slightly later time in my life than some others, these young boys that I wrestle with. So I've always taken a bit of a pragmatic view that I turned 30 last year, and it's one of these things where I'm aware like injuries happen, things happen like all the time. So it's I do take a real pragmatic view with it, and I've obviously already had 2 concussions in the short amount of time that I've been wrestling as well. So it's things like that do sort of play into it for me as well.
Sure.
But I absolutely love it. Likewise, strongman, I signed up. That was on a bit of a whim, and the competition gave me a real like thing for it. I really enjoyed it. So I'm gonna see where that goes as well. But I like lifting heavy things, whether they're people or implements or whatever. Like,
I was getting worried. You said that getting these young guys do it, and you turned 30 this year, like wherever it was. I'm like 39. I'm practically like, well, compared to you, I'm like finished.
I appreciate, like, in the grand scheme of things, 30 is not very old. In a wrestling locker room, I'm quite often one of the older ones.
Oh, okay. I'm blimey. What would I be like in a wrestling?
Thinking about like Mark True and Nino.
Don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Not finished with him yet. Lastly, before we wrap up, Artemis, you're going away soon, aren't you?
I am, yeah.
You're off to Peru. What's all this about?
Yeah, I'm going next Friday. It's kind of like my dream trip that I've always wanted to take. I went through a couple of redundancies a couple of years ago, and that money has just sort of been aside. So me and my friend have booked it, and we're off. So 3 weeks of adventuring around Peru, doing the Inca Trail, seeing Machu Picchu, going to the Amazon, and all that. So yeah, if you need to get hold of me for the first 3 weeks of October, message Adonis.
Good luck with that. Yeah, message Adonis. Exactly. Adonis, more singles coming up for you then.
Yeah. Do you know what? I remember when Artemis messaged me and was like, "Oh, I might be doing this trip to Peru in October, by the way. So we may not be able to do tag bookings. I hope that's okay." And I was like, "Of course it's okay." Like, ultimately, if I didn't work for a month, then great. I have time for my body to recover. But I've been fortunate that I've got promoters that have got faith in me. So, I mean, just announced today, I've got October 7th against Murdoch at UBW. I've got October 15th against Tommy Kyle at Sacrifice.
You weren't happy with that one, was you? About Tommy Kyle, you wasn't happy with facing him from your response.
No, I don't really like Sacrifice at the minute because I don't have a surname. I lost that last May, so that's been what, a year and a half now of having zero identity. I've wasted so much money on Amazon. Just it's been a bit of a hellhole at Sacrifice, and I asked the guys in charge if I could be a ring announcer or a commentator and just actually enjoy a show for once, because I've not enjoyed a Sacrifice show I've ever been a part of. I've lost every single match I've been on, and since, let's just reiterate, this was May 2022. We are now in September of 2023. Every month I turn up, every month I lose. I still have no net. So yeah, I'm not too thrilled about facing Tommy Kyle, especially seeing as it's at his request, but I'll be there. I'll wrestle him because I do owe a lot to Tommy Kyle in my wrestling career. So it's the least I can do. And then, yeah, I've got Tidal as well on the 1st of October. So I'm keeping nice and busy whilst Artemis is away. So that's always good news. I don't think I've got a weekend off while she's gone. So
even better. I was going to say, Artemis, what are you up to? You're obviously in Peru, but do you have anything when you get back? Is it that far down the line yet that you've got stuff going on?
We've got some tag stuff coming up, haven't we? So October 29th, we've got another triple threat tag match at United.
Just a small one.
Defending our belts. Yeah. But it's one of those ones where it was like you get booked and then it escalated really quickly, and now you're in a triple threat. So we're facing Crowley and Alexis. And
Austin and Rob Drake.
Rob and Lana, yes. Sorry. Late in the evening for me, honestly. So it was one of those ones where we'd booked against Lana and Drake, and then it was like, was it Truman? It was Truman that tweeted, how about a bit of Crowley and Alexis as well? And United were like, yeah, it's a good idea.
Right. Yeah, you're gonna have to land back from Peru, recover for about 4 days, and then go into a tag match which is probably the biggest tag match we've ever had. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I think this one is, because it's for our belts. We've got an unbeaten record at United, so you've picked a hell of a time to come back from Peru.
It's going to be an interesting one. Lastly, guys, if anyone wants to book you guys, is it just a case of they can DM you on socials, or do you have a specific address they can get you at?
Do you want to go first?
I think it's just DM on socials for me at the minute. I'm very open on pretty much every form of social media. I check them regularly. And I'm terrible with my email account, which is why I've got 4,000 unread emails. So I think if I set up a workers email account, I'd be horrendous for it. So just the social media DMs for me.
Yeah, no problem. Artemis, how can I get hold of
Yeah,
you?
for me, it's generally on the socials as well. I do have an email address, but I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. So that's really useful, isn't it? But yeah, like I said, we'll see while I'm in Peru. If you are after us as a tag team message, Adonis, I'm going to be giving him all my dates for the rest of the year. Otherwise, I'll answer when I'm back.
I can't answer when you're back. Exactly. Guys, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. It's been awesome speaking to you guys. Just everyone, if you haven't already purchased tickets to Curtain Call Ignite show on November, please do. Adonis will be in action. Maybe Artemis, we don't know yet.
Adonis will be winning.
He'll be winning. Sorry.
Out there.
He'll be winning the breakout tournament. Smashing Mike will be defending his title. Corey McRae and G Money have a high stakes match. High stakes title match. Nina Samuels will be there. Artemis, she will be debuting. Tommy Kyle, your friend, will be there as well as Joe Lando. But guys, this has been the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast with the Odyssey. I have been your host, Adam Cousins. Until next time, everybody, buckle down, stay safe. Goodbye.